it's Julianne Meyer, your host of Own Your Wellness, and I'm excited to be back again. Happy Thursday, everyone. I have an amazing guest today, Jon Kovach Jr., and I got to tell you, I know that awesome that word technically belongs to Mr. Erik Swanson, but I think it also encompasses this guy right here. So let's just bring him on and introduce him.
Dancing backstage, I thought.
Hey, Jon. Fabulous. I'm so excited to have you here. I got to tell you, there's just something about, you know how sometimes when you get like a text message or something like that from somebody, you're kind of like, what do they mean by that? You know, kind of like it could be something negative, but with you, no matter what it is, I always get a smile on my face and I'm like, woohoo, Jon, no matter what.
I love that. That's the point, right? It's to build excited, enthusiastic connection with every human being you come into contact with, even if it's in passing, even if it's formal, even if it's business-wise. It's so important to spread the love and to create relationships at the deepest level.
Well, I do want to say I'm excited to have you in my life, you know, because it works. You're in my life because the world centers around me, you know. But anyway, I got to meet you through Erik, and thank goodness, because you just bring such positivity to the world, as I've mentioned. But not everybody knows who you are. And I always love to have my guests tell a little bit about themselves, because I feel like, you know, you'll tell the good stuff and the fun stuff, or maybe not so fun, but cool.
Well, thank you. And again, thank you for this opportunity. You reached out to me and I said, I've been wanting to be on this show, mostly just to hang out with Julianne one-on-one and her awesome audience. But I'll tell a little bit about my story, and it's both a little bit of awesome and a little bit of crazy. But my story is interesting because I tell people that I've been an entrepreneur since I was 12 years old. And I throw all the credit over to my mother. My mother, you know, in a time when we were struggling to kind of, you know, make ends meet financially, my mom put in the work to build a side gig or a side income for our family so that we could go on vacation, because that was kind of like the normal thing to do. Families who were struggling, they knew they were struggling because they couldn't go on vacation or they couldn't do anything out of the norm. And my mom that was a big piece to her. She just wanted us to go and see the world. So my mom decided that she was going to build a business in vending machines. And we created the little boxes, these cardboard boxes, and we'd go to Costco and buy bulk snacks, and then we'd organize them in a various assortment, and then from there we'd deliver them to these corporate office buildings and put them in the break room or put them in the rec rooms, and we'd put this little can in the vending machine, and the can said 25 cents honor code. So we had these honor boxes that we delivered to corporate office buildings to make a little income for our family. And that taught me so much about entrepreneurism, because we learned a ton about product placement, supply and demand, and just a very other assortment of managing finances. And that got my journey in entrepreneurship and business and creating relationships off to an early start. But I'm a simple farm boy from Colorado. Northern Colorado is where I grew up, in a town called Fort Collins. And we spent the majority of our time there, though we moved around a little bit. And I ended up doing most of my growing up in Fort Collins. But along all of our traveling, along all of our journeys and the vacations that we qualified for in the small entrepreneurial projects we created, we found ourselves living a simple, awesome life. And as a 12-year-old, that was the entrepreneurial beginnings. As a 14-year-old, I did what every 14-year-old does to make money, and they hustle the neighborhood by pushing the lawnmower and getting all their neighbors to, you know, they swindle all their neighbors into paying them to do your lawn, whether that's good, bad, or ugly. And mine was usually ugly, but I put in the sweat equity. And then at age 16, I got this notion that I could do something better than the locals were doing it. And the problem is I loved Julianne. I loved going to dances. I loved going dancing, like to go out and just like shake it and listen and groove. But the one problem I had with all the dances I ever went to, all the parties, all the fun times, was the music was just never right. And what I loved and appreciated about the intro to this show is it puts you into a really good mood. It's all about beats per second. And there's this study, there's this psychology about beats per second. And I didn't know much about psychology, but I knew how to party. I knew how to have fun. And so long story short is I talked to my parents and I said, hey, I've saved up my money through all these entrepreneurial ventures. Can I go buy some DJ equipment? And they're like, didn't see that one coming, Jon, but we'll support you. And that was a huge piece of my childhood, is my parents believed in me no matter what crazy idea I came up with. But what happened was when I got my DJ equipment, I started to do local dances at the middle schools, at the high schools. I started doing proms, and then I was doing homecomings, and then I was doing the Catholic parties, and then I was doing 80, 90-year-old birthday parties. I started doing everything, put several local DJs out of business just by hustling the round robin of our district and finding opportunities to play good music. And to wrap my long story short up, who I am, where I came from, what I came to be is I loved DJing. It was so much fun. I loved curating and I love that word, curating an environment for people to enjoy themselves, have fun. But the one thing I learned from that experience, the one thing that came out of all of that, was I didn't just like playing music and being that environment instructor, but what I loved, I'm going to put this down for a second, was being behind a microphone. And it was so interesting because I loved this. This was one of the coolest experiences because behind a microphone, I could build relationships. I could turn the average wallflower into the breakdancing fiend. I could create amazing things with the power of a microphone. And I realized there was power in my voice, whether it was energetic, enthusiasm, just crazy, wild energy, or just fun smiles and laughter. But whatever it was, we could curate an environment of experience. And that was the success that came from all my entrepreneurial journeys to a 16-year-old who figured it out. People want to have an experience. And so I've literally turned my life upside down, focusing on this. I have a voice. I need to be behind a microphone. And as long as that microphone is leading people in experiences, then I'm doing the right thing. And so skip, what was that? My 16-year-old self. So skip 15 years later. And here I am, an international motivational speaker, building masterminds, working with the awesome Mr. Awesome, Erik Swanson, having built several other businesses and have been having just a really, really fun time serving people. But with that one dream, with that one purpose and that mission, is as long as I'm behind a microphone, I can curate an environment for an experience and for people to really, really enjoy what they're going through and to find solutions to their problems. And that's it. I mean, it's easy, it's fun, it's simple. There's a lot more that went into those 15 years, obviously lots of blood, sweat, and tears and more tears and more tears. But again, at the end of the day, it was this idea of solving a problem. But I mean, we'll get into this more later, Julianne, but I mean, let's talk about wellness for a second. There were highs and there were lows. There always is in the entrepreneurial journey. But as long as there are highs and as long as there are lows, the humanity of growth and the humanity of progress comes from how we manage, how we control, and how we own all that we go through. So there it is, the long story kind of short of who I am, where I came from, and what I'm up to. And now I'm living in Salt Lake City, just outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. Where I can ski year round. I'm just kidding, only half the year, but we do love the fresh mountain air, and that's why we reside out here.
Oh, I love that. I've never been to Utah, so I've always wanted to go. Now I can visit.
We've got an excellent futon in the extra bedroom.
So you mentioned something about wellness and how there's highs and lows. And my question for you is, have you noticed a correlation between how well you treat yourself and how well your life is going? How does that work for you?
Yeah, there is such a high correlation, to use the verbiage that you used, because in this world of science and measurement, there's a methodology to everything we do. And whether we're letting our conscious or subconscious take control, we've designed that habitually to ourselves. And one of the things I've learned is that when I'm at the high of the highs, there are less distractions in my life. When I'm at the lows of the lows, I've welcomed those distractions in. I think people call it Murphy's Law or something like that, where Murphy will always find a space on the futon in the spare bedroom when you leave the door open. And what happens is we get comfortable and complacent. And instead of striving for growth and progress and results and outcomes, we oftentimes get comfortable and complacent. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying and feeling and being present. But when we open the door for things to creep in, you're either progressing or digressing. And when the digression when digression is opened its doors, things start to come into your life. You start drinking more caffeine, or you start losing sleep. You start tending to other things that aren't necessary, but you find yourself in this, we'll call it, hamster wheel of behaviors that you forget to just jump off.
Yeah.
Or if you've ever seen the famous YouTube video of the hamster that runs and runs and runs and runs and runs and then stops. Instead of jumping off, it stops. And guess what happens? The hamster starts going with the wheel. And that happens. That just happens. And when we get to that point, yeah, it's going to rattle our brains. It's going to make us sick. But sometimes we need that reminder. There is balance, there is control, there is ownership in all this, but at the same time, there's such a, like to your point, Julianne, there's such a high correlation with the highs and the lows and how you welcome them in. And what that means is you have total control. And I know that many people might argue with me about that right now with COVID and crazy times, but you have total control. And when we all went into quarantine in 2020, March of 2020, I told myself I would not become a couch potato. And so every single day, I took my dogs out on the trails behind our house, and I walked my dogs for 2 miles. And I stayed walking. I made sure, for all you Apple product users out there, I don't know if I'm allowed to do that, but I use my Apple Watch to close my rings of energy every day. And I focused on that. And ever since then, despite COVID and despite all these other viruses and illnesses traveling the world, I have never been healthier, happier, and more aware of my life, my surroundings, and who I am. And that was a really interesting piece, because two things changed. I committed to the highs. And because I was committed, my nutrition changed, my sleep habits changed, my consumption of social media changed, my screen time changed. That high was associated with my commitment. And then the second thing was accountability. I had an amazing partner, also known as my wife, who we did this together. We focused on our health. I don't have 30 pounds to lose, but I lost 30 pounds amongst this entire experience because I just took care of myself, my weight. And it's not that I needed to lose that much, nor was it my goal. I'm going to lose 30, but it was the idea that I would focus intentionally on the direction of my health and make sure I maintained a status quo at the highs. So there you go. There's kind of another long answer to your question, but I love these open questions. They're really rocking.
Well, I love your answers too, because you touch on so many things. I'm like, yes.
and this is your show. So anytime, just be like, time out. Let's talk about that. Because there's a ton packed in there. And I know that we can go in any which direction. And I'm happy.
Exactly. No, we can. But there's something that you were talking about that I love, that you're intentional about your health. And there's certain things like I was training somebody this morning, and she and I were talking about her mood and how her mood hadn't been the way it was. And I was asking her about, like, okay, well, are you still doing this? Are you still doing this? And the answer was no. And I was like, well, what do you expect? And she was like, you're right. So, I mean, a lot of it has to do with gut health, so we talked a lot about what she could do with that. And then just simple things like she normally keeps a gratitude journal and she'd stop doing that. And I said, do you notice that your mood went down when you stopped doing that? And she said, yes. I'm like, me too. That's when I have to look at myself and I'm like, I haven't been doing that either. No wonder I'm not grateful.
Right.
And it's so easy, that comes with like the complacency. It works. So I get used to it. And then I'm like, that's okay one day if I don't. And then all of a sudden it's 2 weeks later and now I'm out of the habit of it. And it's like, starting an airplane again, when you're at cruising altitude, it's easy to fly, but it's that taking off that, it's like, oh my God, am I going to make it?
Oh, you just struck one of my love languages, talking about airplanes. I love that. That is, that's amazing. And if I might add into that, here's a Jonism. I call them Jonism. They're just kind of my own theories, taken with a grain of salt. But I have found something to help me personally. And again, let's take that story of Jon, who Jon is. Jon is a public speaking professional who has severe ADHD, unmedicated for it, who just likes to have a good time and intertwines fun with purpose. That's all I did. That's my mission in life. If I'm not having fun, then I need to remove myself or fix it. That's all I have to care about. But to speak into what you were just saying is we put an immense amount of pressure on ourselves. And the truth is, I think I saw it in a meme, which memes are all 100% true because we know that this world's all, we believe in, I would rather trust memes than science. So yeah, let that speak for itself. But it was in a meme that like people think you're 30% more beautiful and what's the word I'm looking for? You're 30% more beautiful and accomplished than you think of yourself. And whether that's true or not, because 90% of statistics are all made up on the spot, is that whether that's true or not, it's amazing how much pressure we put on ourselves. And there's this idea of perfection, and it's labeled in all of the tabloids. It's all over the media. Just go to Instagram.com. You'll be blown away with how many more people are sexier than us, right? But it doesn't, but except for Julianne, because she's amazing. And there's no one better. But here's the deal. And here's my Jonism is that there are rituals and there are routines. And if we place ourselves on a high standard and you use routines to achieve that standard, you will oftentimes beat yourself to a crisp if you don't give yourself time to recover. And here's why. Because routines are time-based. If I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, 5 a.m. club, anybody out there?
Right here.
5 a.m. club. I'm about 3 out of the 7 days a week, 5 a.m. club, and the rest I sleep in. But if you put yourself on that timeline, 5 a.m., get up, stretch, yoga, workout, smoothies, breakfast, shower, work, or meditation or reading or whatever people do. And you put yourself on that timeline. The second you sleep in past that time and you're rushed, you've put pressure on your routine. And then the effectiveness of that routine is no longer going to make you feel good. It's going to take you down to the lows because you've put that pressure on yourself. Now let's talk about rituals. A ritual is kind of like checking the box, but more than checking the box. It's not about fulfillment. It's about creating success in your day. And I love rituals because a ritual is, you know what, if I wake up at 5 a.m. or 5:03, I'm still going to get up. I'm still going to do I'm going to kneel and I'm going to give gratitude to my Lord and Savior. And then I'm going to move into the gym and I'm going to do my yoga and my meditation. And if I'm pressed for time, it doesn't matter. I can use that day to breathe in for a few minutes. And and I know the science behind this. So I know that, just by breathing, you've increased your meditation time, your ability to exercise at a faster rate. It does so much for you. And so if you can create rituals that bring you success each day, then you're not so time bound by the routines and you're not so held heavy, shoulder weighted down on yourself because you've put that pressure on you. And I love that. And that's why I call it a Jonism, is rituals versus routines. If you can find a ritual that gives you success in your day and makes you at the highest vibe you can, then those are what you want to do. And they don't have to be time bound. They can be how you feel. Now, obviously, if we've got to be at work by 9 a.m., make sure you fit them in. But if it's something you can do in the car, if it's something that you can do in the shower, if it's something that you can do in your meditation space or your health space or wellness space, then do it then. But be okay with being okay, and be okay that the rituals will help you set success up for your day rather than being a time-bound routine. So there's a Jonism for you.
I love it because that, it changes how I perceive things, because when you think of like a routine, it's a should. I should be doing this. I need to be doing this. I have to do this. But a ritual is something that is like you enjoy. It's, something that is just a part of you, as opposed to, oh man, I can't even do my routine because I woke up 10 minutes late. Now I'm off my schedule now, or, and so, it takes the pressure off, because it turns it into something you want instead of something that is like you have to do. And I've worked in addiction recovery for a long time. And part of like what they talk about in AA is they say these are merely suggestions. Because they know better than to tell an addict to be like, you need to do this, because that's the last thing you're going to do. Like, don't tell me what to do. I think most people are like that. Like, nobody wants to be told what to do. I don't really know too many people that like that.
Yeah.
Even when we do it to ourselves all of the time.
Yeah.
But it's nice.
It's crazy. And it's cool because it's like, if you tap into that, we'll call it like self-psychology. So in psychology, there's the positive reinforcement. Okay. And positive reinforcement is built through wins and celebrations. But we can do that to ourselves in simple ways, like you just described, Julianne, that you focus on the things that are going to help you win, and realize that not every advice, not everything you receive, not all the information given to you is going to help you win, but that what you choose to do and pushes you forward or makes you progress instead of digress is going to create that positive reinforcement that our brains are seeking, are starving for. So it's pretty cool.
You know what else too? And I love this one too, because it's, the positive reinforcement idea, it works really well for me, and it's going to sound really silly, but I have my little stars. So if I'm trying to start a new habit, I want to keep those stars. I want that row of stars on my calendar, and it works. It doesn't cost anything, but it works like a charm, because I'm bound and determined to get that next star.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's just something simple and easy, and it doesn't really cost anything. But I'm telling you, I don't want to break the streak once it's started, especially when I can visually see it. It's like, oh yeah, I got to have me some more of that.
That reminds me of like back when I was in grade school and we'd go to Sunday school, and we'd have an attendance chart, and they gave us these little star stickers, and we'd put it on the attendance chart. And if you came all 6 weeks in a row, you received a prize at the end. And it was like, you can't break the streak. Man, that is such a cool methodology. I like that.
And it's so simple. People try and make things hard. It's like, it's really simple. For me, all it took is a stupid little star. And when I didn't have stars, I used to just cross it off on my calendar. I put an X through that day, and I was like, yes, one down. Because I did a 4-week juice cleanse years ago. 4 weeks, juice only. That was it. And that little X on the calendar was probably one of the only things that kept me going. Because otherwise I've been like, I need to eat. I've done, I know this is very congenial right now, but I've done cleanses too, and they are tough, man. You've got to have mental toughness to endure any kind of cleanse. And I'm now to the point where if I ever eat out and I know that it's going to make me feel gross, my cleanse per se is, a full 24 hours of water and some increased vegetables and spinach usually does the trick for me, or maybe some increased consumption of legumes, beans and stuff. And so I'm a big fan of that, but I know that feeling. I'm proud of you. Can I just say that, Julie? I'm proud of you. 10 days
I hardly made it 3 in what they call the master cleanse. It's the
I know that one. Yeah, I totally know that.
And that was brutal because it's cayenne pepper and organic whatever lemonade. Oh my gosh! And 3 days, man, I had the support group. I've never had more people following me on social media than when I did the master cleanse, because I looked like I was, like I was imprisonment, man. It was
yeah, it was tough. I remember too, I was doing some sort of cleanse and I was still working at the rehab. And so we were taking the clients to In-N-Out and I wasn't eating anything. And I was like, oh, and I don't typically eat meat, but I've never wanted a hamburger so bad in my life. I almost snatched one from somebody's hand. And it's not like I didn't have money to buy my own. I was just wanted it that bad right then. It was so funny. Like, what is going on with me? But anyway, we do need to go to commercial break real quick, and because I'm just being silly, I figure now's as good a time. So
let's do it. Let's party on the commercial break.
I know, right? Woohoo! So obviously you guys understand why I'm excited to have Jon on the show today. He is so much fun. All these little gems and words of wisdom. Can't go better than that, but we do need to go to commercial break. But before we go to commercial break, before I forget, I want to make sure and say hello to everybody who is watching us live. Thank you so much. I always appreciate all the comments, and I like to go back and read them later too. So thank you for being here live. And of course, the people that are watching us on TV as well. Anyway, we'll be right back. Hey everyone. So I wish you could have seen what I just witnessed. I could see Jon dancing in the green room, and it was so much fun. And I just love that kind of energy. So let's just bring it back out.
It was a catchy song.
I was like, is he doing the floss?
The problem was, and this is embarrassing, I'm turning red, is that because we're sitting down, we're in our desks, right? I won't show everyone, our listeners, but yeah, you got the full view, and I'm just dancing. I promise, we are wearing pants, and that's
Speak for yourself. No, I'm just kidding. I am wearing pants. Yeah, otherwise it'd be cold. But but anyway, so this is going to be kind of a leading question, but
let's shoot. Let's have some fun.
I see that you have Think and Grow Rich behind you, and I know that you love that book. It's like the business Bible or the success Bible. What are some books that, what are some books that you've read that have changed your life, altered how you conduct your life?
I love this question. And I tell a lot of people that it was just about 2 or 3 years ago is when I started picking up books more. In fact, that entire entrepreneurial story I gave you and 15 years of entrepreneurism, I could have probably picked up maybe less than 10 books in that entire journey. And then in the last 2 years, I was challenged to read more and obtain and focus on that. And so I've read over 150 books in the last 2.5 years. And so there's a lot of books out there, but I'll tell you this. Obviously, Think and Grow Rich, one of the all-time greats. I'm grateful for it because of its simplicity. And I mean, let's talk about one of the books that has, been sold the most on the market, like one of the top 10 books of all time sold on the market. And its applications have made more millionaires than any other book in the world. And so this is a great resource, and I follow it, quarterly in my business, quarterly in my life, and there's principles in there that will change your life. But another book that recently absolutely changed me is a book also by Napoleon Hill, and I forget the term, but it was published by the Napoleon Hill Foundation and narrated by our good friend Sharon Lecter. And the book is called Outwitting the Devil. And I was never aware, and this is a funny way to say it, but I was never aware of this concept of drifting. And without giving away the entire book, which you guys should pick up, Outwitting the Devil. It's a recent published book within the last few years. Napoleon Hill's family and posterity were terrified of what condemnation might come down on them if they published this book. And so it sat in its blueprint for decades until the Napoleon Hill Foundation and Sharon Lecter and several other amazing celebrities decided, I think the world needs this. And they published it. And Napoleon has an amazing experience chatting with the devil, but before you go anywhere else with that idea, he gets to ask any question he wants to unravel the devil's secrets and to pin it against him to teach the world how to live their highest lives, their best life. And he mentions this concept of drifting, and all of us, all 100% of humans alive are somewhere in their life drifting, whether it's in our finances, whether it's in our health, whether it's in our attention to detail or our relationships. There's somewhere in our life that we drift. But he talks about how the devil used drifters as a way to claim what they call the 98% of the world. And then there's people like Julianne, who are the 1%, who are amazing. Nothing bothers them. Nothing rattles them always. And it's that person who's always moving forward that can't be affected by his gimmicks. And so it's such a good book. It will open your eyes to the things that we all drift on. And that's a book that changed my life, whether it was about scholastic reading, education, municipality governments, or just being a good person. It opened my eyes greater than any other book has. And I'm so impacted by that. One other book to mention, and it's part of my annual reading list, but Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I always keep this and Napoleon Hill's on my desk because it reminds me, and something cool about this book. I mean, everyone knows this is about communication, building relationships, winning people over, right? But my favorite subtle message in that book isn't just winning friends and acquiring greater sales and wealth. It's about how you treat people, and it's about how people receive that. And that is one of my most powerful. That goes back to the DJ story, because when you can get the wallflower into the middle of the dance floor, then you know how to win people over. But when you know how to win people over, it means you're not deceiving them. It means you're treating them like humans, the way they want to be treated. And that's one of my favorite pieces to this entire bookcase of books, is that you can read all the books in the world, but pick the one or two little things that will change your life. So there's a few I wanted to throw out there.
I love that. So this is the leading question.
Cool.
that was good. That was good. But I wanted to talk to you about masterminds because you lead the one that I'm in. And the importance of a mastermind, because not everybody even knows what one is. Right. So, for me, I've been in a few that weren't very, they were called masterminds, but they weren't. They weren't true to form. But then the one that, I'm in with you is definitely a mastermind. So if you could explain a little bit about that, I'd love to share that with the audience.
Yeah, and I'll be sure to be brief, but also cut me off at any time if you want to delve into something a little bit deeper. But let's teach people what a mastermind is, and let's teach them what they aren't, and then let's let them decide. But I think that we can give them an awesome experience through this description. A mastermind, as written by the father of masterminds himself. In fact, Napoleon Hill described a mastermind as a collective group of people who meet together often, and in that group, and with the spirit of harmony, find ways to solve each other's problems. They take the time to work together and to create solutions, whether it's solving world hunger or overcoming your problem with staying up late and sleeping in, or writing an amazing book, whatever it is. The mastermind is a group of people who put their minds together to create an additional magical third mind that allows us to find accelerated solutions to our challenges, issues, and problems. And I love that because it really is a group of people. Now, a mastermind is not, and thank you to Hollywood, and thank you to movies and this creative industry of filmmaking. A mastermind is not one person. A mastermind is not a guru, a teacher, a one person at the front of the room teaching and mentoring thousands of others. A mastermind is not a criminal either. Now, we've used that one before where they call it the criminal mastermind, and that's not an emphasis on mastermind, it's an emphasis on the criminal, that they came up with some really interesting, intricate plans. But that's what a mastermind is not. And so if you've ever been lured into a meeting or a mastermind and it's one person speaking, you've probably missed the mastermind methodology. Now, if there's an intertwining teaching and collaborating and continuing to, share ideas and solutions with one another, that's a really good hybrid. That's a really good example. But if you boil it down to the bones, all it is two or more minds that get together and they spend that time together finding solutions. One of the greatest masterminds that I've ever read about in the history books is this group called the Inklings. And the Inklings is a famous group of writers. You might know them. There was C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien and some of those great authors of our time in this small mastermind group. And I'll tell you a quick story about it. I know this is not a tangent. I'll be quick, I promise. J.R.R. Tolkien, we'll just call him Tolkien, showed up to the mastermind once and said, "Hey guys, great job. The Hobbit, we just published it. It was a hit. People loved it. And now I'm having a problem here. I want to continue the series, but I just can't come up with enough creative content to continue the series." And C.S. Lewis put down his hand and he's like, Tolkien, and I imagine them jawing back and forth as friends, right? Tolkien, what makes a Hobbit interesting is when it leaves the Shire and goes on an adventure. And that one suggestion in that mastermind led to what is known as one of the greatest trilogies of all time. Not biased, I promise. The Lord of the Rings. So there's an example of the greatness that comes from a mastermind. So we talked about what a mastermind is and what it isn't. And let's go back to what it is, because a mastermind is a place where you can receive, and this is something that Julianne can speak to, is it's something where you can receive intense accountability from people who care about you, who are relentless about your success, who want to see you succeed. They share insight and resources with one another. They hold each other accountable. They watch each other celebrate as they achieve. They embrace them when we failed. They're a support group far greater than any of the other support groups I've ever noticed in this world. And when you boil it down to the blueprint of what Napoleon Hill wrote as the mastermind methodology, you'll start to discover that, you know what? If we can just mastermind in every aspect of our life, with our partners, with our children, with our families, in our school districts, in our municipalities and governments, if we can do this more often than not, the world will be a much more progressed and achieved place. It will have so many more solutions. It'll have much more opportunities, and we'll be so much happier in the long run because we come together in that spirit of harmony to help ourselves grow out of the state that we're in. What a cool concept, right? Like, let's just all get together and do masterminds. It's brilliant. And I have fallen in love with the methodologies. I've been studying it for the last 6 years. I've studied a lot of networking groups and a lot of other organizations and associations. But the mastermind methodology has been the one thing that I've realized that we all need in a daily basis. I train my sales team. We work with our staff all on the mastermind methodologies because it's the fastest way to accelerate solutions to our challenges and problems in life.
That's really well said and way better than what I could describe. So you're like a professional. Something that you were saying though, because we were talking about Napoleon Hill a little bit, and this is something that just like popped into my brain. I was talking the other day with Greg Drolet. You probably don't know him, but he is the founder of the Inspired Life Academy and a good friend of mine. And we were talking about how, there's you don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's a blueprint out there for anything that you want. So you don't have to go and try and figure out a new way to, get where you want to go because somebody's already done it 90% of the time anyway. So I was like, I don't really understand that, Think and Grow Rich is one of the most popular books out there. And yet there aren't a million more millionaires than there are. And then I was wondering why that would be. And I had a thought, and I'm just curious what you think of this one, is that it's very simple ideas. And I feel like as people, most people want to make it a lot more complicated. And so they don't even try, or they don't even put the effort in because they're like, that's not going to work, or I'll do this part, but not that part. Or I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I love this. I'm really glad that this popped into your head because in my opinion, there's so many areas we could cover with this and where to start, but in its simplicity, success isn't easy. It never was. And that's why it's success, because it's something that's outside the normal comfort zone. It's an achievement. It's above the standard of mediocrity, but it is simple. It is absolutely simple. I mean, when you take this entire methodology of getting together and roundtable discussions, and what you experience is a moderator and a facilitator who keeps the meeting organized and working together. But look, like those are efficiencies to create the methodology. And we've developed that over time to help people, because whether you're working in a mastermind with high-level executives and CEOs, or entrepreneurs, or women's groups, or health groups, or addiction recovery groups, the methodology is the same. And it's so simple. It's come together, and in a structured, facilitated, professionally guided group, make sure that we provide the best positive resources possible so that others can be inspired to take action. And then as a result of that action, be the camaraderie, be the community, be the family that relentlessly focuses on that person's accountability. If they can go out there and achieve what they want to do, and they come back and report, the measurement creates success for one another. I see Helen wrote in the comment section, "This is heavy." And I said, yeah, this is heavy stuff. But let me tell you this, it's simple. If you come together and if you're where you're at now in life and all you have is connection to maybe one other person, and if that person can be an accountability partner to you while you both work on your goals, and you're relentlessly committed to making sure that you don't let any one of each other fall short, and you practice that ritual versus routine methodology, you will find yourself succeeding at faster rates. And it's because success isn't easy, but it is simple. And I can't claim that as my own quote. Actually, Erik Swanson introduced me to one of his really good friends, an Olympic medalist, Ruben Gonzalez, in the I think it's the luge or the skeleton. I can't remember the luge. And he and I had an interview on our podcast, and I'm grateful for Erik's connection because he taught me that principle, that success wasn't ever easy, but it is simple. And that's why you see a lot of these people, when they figure out the simplicity of success, they turn it on overdrives and they repeat like it's rinse and repeat. And I love that. So there's a kind of a short answer, but let me turn it back on you because I feel like you can speak into this too. You're so knowledgeable about groups and networking and relationships and coaching. What do you think about this concept? And do you believe that you can also create simplicity out of it?
Well, yes, I honestly feel like it's really, we just as humans make everything so much more, it's like, that can't be it.
Yeah.
And then like you said, like, nah, that's not it. Or you can't see the instant gratification. So it's kind of like you work out once and you're like, what, I haven't lost 15 pounds yet. I mean, it doesn't work like that, but and then that's the other thing too. To become successful, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. And most people aren't willing to be uncomfortable. They're only willing to just go right to that edge and then they go back down. Yeah. I mean, I've been there, so I can't really, it's not a judgment. It's just an observation. It's more like, you get enough so your needs are met. That's dangerous. My spiritual mentor, he's like, that's the most dangerous place to be, is when all your needs are met, because most people stop striving at that point because everything is taken care of. And that's when they get into the complacency and everything else. So I thought that was a beautiful thing to say, but it's kind of like we're taught to, this is the other thing too, is we're taught to look outside of ourselves for the answers everywhere for everything. Like we went to school, somebody taught us, we go to the doctor to tell us what's wrong with us instead of like there's definitely value, and nobody becomes successful on an island by themselves. It takes people to do that. But, we're just sort of taught not to trust ourselves and said, and then we kind of listen to, and I found this because I've lived abroad. I found this in Americans. That's kind of crazy, is that, especially in Americans, is that it's a microwave society. So we want things right now. And if it doesn't happen, then we're on to the next thing. We didn't even give it a shot. Like, we'll, like, for example, with diet, we'll try, I tried that for 3 weeks and nothing. Yeah. It doesn't work like that. You need to give us some time. It's like, if you stick with one thing and go for it, it will work. So I don't know. I just think it's about consistency more than anything else. It's like, you just have to be consistent. It's like when I was starting out in the sales job that I'm doing, I was like, I don't know how to sell this product. So I just didn't. Well, as soon as I start like making the time to sit there and be like, okay, this is the hour I'm going to sell, then all of a sudden I could come up with ideas, but I just wasn't even willing to do it before I made that time and like force myself to sit there and, come up with ideas. It's just, I don't know. That's just my thoughts about success and like just consistency. That's the main thing, was we're so inconsistent. Or like when people are trying to change their lives, they try and bite off more than they can chew. It's like, I'm going to go back to my typical one with rehab.
Yeah.
You were a heroin addict, for example, not you, but like you're a heroin addict, and now you refuse to eat anything unless it's organic, and like or you refuse, like you need to work out every single day. Dude, you were in a ditch a week ago. It's okay if you eat some popcorn, it's not the end of the world. Like it's not all or nothing. It's, you can. And like my personal favorite, like for me, it was so so enlightening, and I felt so dumb about this, and it took me so long because I was such a black and white thinker for so long. It was like, okay, blueberries, for example, you should eat organic blueberries. The nickname is brainberries. But let's say I couldn't afford to buy organic blueberries. I'd be like, oh, well, I guess we'll get a Twix. I mean, it's like, where did, like there's no in between. I would say that just regular blueberries that aren't organic is still going to be better than a Twix. But that thought never crossed my mind. It was just one or the other. So I don't know. I'm kind of rambling, but I love that idea that it's just about consistency and willing to see what is really there.
Yeah. And I want to feed into that before, I know we got to wrap up here soon, but I want to feed into that because that's where the power of an accountability partner and one thing I like to teach, and I speak on stage internationally about this, I teach the 4 irrefutable laws of high performance. And the 4 irrefutable laws of high performance, they talk about the 4 levels of accountability. And there's personal accountability, there's accountability with a peer or some sort of partner that you create. There's the professional accountability that comes from a paid coach, which is so valuable, so structured, and so important. And then there's the mastermind or group accountability that you can gain. And that has so much power to it all. But the reason why I bring all that up is to your point, consistency is vital to success. If you want to have success in marketing online and creating residual sales and perpetual value to your customers, you've got to be consistent. The one thing about TikTok right now, TikTok's the world's finest anomaly in social media world, and they say that the only major key to success on TikTok right now is consistency. If you figure out the time that your listeners or your audience are on there, post then and post multiple times to engage with them and then go live. So I love that piece. And to the mastermind methodology, the reason why I think it's powerful to meet often means like regularly, like perpetually, and have no end date, because it's an endless commitment to success in your life. That's where you show up consistently. And I think that's something we all get to experience at our mastermind, Julianne, at the Habitude Warrior Mastermind, which I'd love to invite people to connect with me, and we can get them into as a guest, as Julianne's guest. Sorry, I got to point to the other direction. To Julianne's guest in our mastermind, because you'll get to experience all the things that we just described. The accountability, the experience, the excitement, and it's so phenomenal. It's an amazing way to just love and feel the experience. Like I was talking about, that environment that helps you become from the wallflower to the raging breakdancer in the middle of the room. It changes your life, and it doesn't just change a little, it's transformational. And that consistency, that accountability, that camaraderie, the support of community and family is what creates endless accelerated success in your life. And I'm extremely grateful for it. And it's why I've changed everything in my life around to focus on mastermind groups. And I'm going to focus on putting mastermind groups in public education. I want to make sure I teach my churches. I want to make sure I teach other religions. I want to teach municipalities and all of these incredible organizations and associations, corporate America, and so forth. If everyone can use this methodology, then I believe that the solutions that we're seeking will be found faster, and that will also have increased exponential accelerated success in our lives. So I wanted to speak into that.
That was very well said. And just so everybody knows, if you haven't noticed, down below, if you want to reach out to Jon, that's how you can find him on the Book of Face.
The Book of Face.
Yes, the Book of Face. We are almost out of time. Is there any parting words of wisdom that you would love to leave with our audience?
Well, first of all, I believe that the mastermind methodology should be with everyone. And if it's okay with you, Marianne, we've invited your audience, any of your guests, and anyone you know to attend our mastermind, the Habitude Warrior Mastermind, as Julianne's guest. And I'll let it slide. No, I'm just kidding. But we really do want you to come and experience it so that we can teach everybody, but that you might fall in love with an active community that helps one another. And the only thing I would say is that you can find that by going to ridealongguestpass.com, or you can just type in awesomemastermind.com and it'll take you to the same place. But the Awesome Mastermind is the place where you ought to be learning these methodologies so that you can have accelerated exponential success in every area of your life: finances, family, relationships, business, and all of the things that you wish to change in the deepest, darkest corners of our lives. So focus on greatness, focus on accelerated success, and you will find the mastermind will give you all of that.
Awesome. Well, Jon, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure, as always.
Thank you, Julianne. And you are amazing. I can't wait to share this with my entire community. And I appreciate this time, and thank you for the platform. This is an amazing show. And every time I'm watching, there's so many great speakers teaching value to your listeners. And so I'm just grateful to be a part of the community.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Bye, everybody.
Love him. He's so great. And he's going to put in the comments too, for those of you who are watching online, how to join in on the mastermind if you'd like to. But until Monday, have a great night, everyone.